good morning, everybody. Pleasure to have you here. Sorry to have kept you waiting for a few more minutes. My name is Yaki Dayan from EdTech Israel. I'll be moderating this session, and I have people that over here that will share with you their stories and their anecdotes about the view of the economy and the view of human capital and so forth. We are from Israel. We are known also to be like improvising a lot. So apology for you to wait a few minutes, but we found out that actually to take people off the stand and back to the stand, it takes too long. So that's why we'll change the format a little bit, and we brought everyone to the stage from the very beginning. Well, I'm sure that some of you already heard about the state of Israel and about the term startup nation. And if you came over here all the way to a session on artificial intelligence, that's how it was categorized for some reason with the ASU GSV app. We are not going to discuss necessarily artificial intelligence. What we would like to share with you is the way that we feel about human intelligence, about the human capital, its importance, maybe its uniqueness, and how we approach it in Israel, and what are the different models that we can share with all of you experts over here at the ASU GSV. I'd like to start with my partner, Limor from the Bird Foundation, because one of the things that is, there's a very strong bond between Israel and the US on everything related to research and development. And Limor, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So good morning, everyone. As some of you may know, Israel is one of the leading ecosystems in innovation nowadays. In Israel, there's more engineers and scientists per capita than many other places in the world. And in the last couple of years, there's an amazing, thriving economy, and many Israeli companies and many new startup companies that are being established on a daily basis. Actually, according to the data published by the Israel Innovation Authority, in 2018, Israeli companies were acquired for $24 billion. There's more than 600 companies that were established in Israel just in 2018. And it's one of the centers in the world for attracting venture capital funding for innovative technology. So why Israel became such a mega place for innovation? There's more than 350 multinational companies that are based nowadays in Israel. All the big names like Apple, Google, Facebook, Alibaba, Johnson & Johnson, and so on. They all decided to have a prime location in Israel because they realized that by being there, they can be connected with the people who can actually develop disruptive technologies. And by being in Israel, they're actually buying a prime spot to know what are the major trends and the developments and technologies that are going to be developed. The main reason for that is not AI or any other jargon words of the new technologies. The main reason is really the human power of the people that actually create those technologies. This is the strength of the Israel economy, and this is something that we are going, hopefully, to continue the developments of our human power, which is actually makes a huge difference in creating those disruptive technologies and making a change and impact in this world. And we are here today to discuss the human power versus AI. And with that, I will transfer to my colleagues.
So, I started to share with you my background. I started as an engineer. And, I've been told as an engineer that if there is a certain theory and you find something that defies the theory, then maybe this theory is wrong. Now, I'm sure that all of you heard about all the international tests that are over there, and all the OECD numbers and all these things. And what they tell you is that if you will improve on the international test, it will add to your GDP such and such. And Israel is not doing very well on those international tests, and still we are growing our GDP every year, in spite of not doing very well on those international tests. Now, some people call it miracle. I would argue that maybe this is a proof that the theory is simply wrong. So, if we try to, for a second, escape, the usual standard tests and usual schools and organizations that we are familiar with, universities, nothing wrong about those organizations, but let's for a second try to escape with our imagination away for, let's say, some other domains. Then maybe I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Yoav from Selena. Hi, Yoav.
Hi.
What is Selena doing?
Selena is at core hospitality platform. We were founded by two Israelis who moved to Panama, and they started a single Selena about 4 years ago. We've now grown into 50 locations. We hope to have hundreds of locations in the next few years. The idea behind it is it's a hospitality platform that has everything from hotel, which is hostel rooms and private hotel rooms, to food and beverage, to wellness, to co-working, to surf clubs and radio stations. Everything that you might want to do while you travel. And the idea ultimately is to create a platform for people to travel the world where they can really work and play and sleep within our system and travel the world doing it. So they can continue to work, they can continue to meet friends, and they can explore the world at the same time. But it's a physical platform that allows people to interact at the end of the day.
How much money was raised by Selena so far?
We've raised, actually today we're closing our C round. Actually today, it will be $250 million at the Topco level.
Wonderful. So, some people argue that maybe you are the future of co-working places.
We do, yeah.
Who is actually going to be in those co-working places? What's your target audience?
The core, everybody talks about millennials. It's millennials, but I think it's anybody who wants to be a millennial. It's taking co-working and the WeWork model and taking it to the next level. WeWork offers a lot of flexibility, obviously. Co-working offers a lot of flexibility. But the idea is if you take it to the next level where forget a desk in an office in a main city and an apartment next door and cars and everything else that costs and requires, if you completely detach from your physical environment, and you can do exactly the same thing. You can co-work on a beach in Panama, you can co-work in Buenos Aires, you can co-work in Shanghai. At the end of the day, if you have your laptop and you have your phone, you can be anywhere. So co-working becomes an entire global platform. By creating the physical spaces around the world, whether it's a jungle or a main city, you can give people the entire planet as a co-working space, ultimately.
It took WeWork a few years until to realize that their audience also requires skills and reskilling and upskilling and to go into the education. I understand that you are learning from their experience and you implement it from day one.
Yeah. So Adam Newman is actually one of our original investors in the company, so we're very close to WeWork, and it's very complementary. The WeWork customer, the WeWork audience is very similar to our audience. But yeah, it is, as I said before, it really is, it's taking their growth model in terms of the fast growth, because you do need to build that platform to give people that opportunity to travel. But it's built on the same customer base. It's built on, they disrupted the office space business, we disrupted the hotel business. And we think that both travel is changing, but also the way people work and interact is changing, and that's what we're creating for them.
So in this new setting, what's going to be the learning experience of people? What do they want to learn, and why? What are you providing them? What's your philosophy about learning?
So it's our platform is for everybody from a weekend traveler on the one hand, all the way to a full digital nomad who just decides to just detach and just travel the world and work. But in the middle of all that is also education. So we have educational programs through our system where you can go to our properties for a week or a month or a year and you can study Spanish, you can study coding, we can create whatever educational program you want on the road. And it can be physical, meaning you can actually do something that is giving back to the community if you want to do some volunteer tourism or something like that. Or it can be, it can be online. You can actually be on a beach in Panama and study back in the US, all online. But we've created courses for people to basically travel through our system, study while they're with us, and work while they're with us, depending on how long they want to be with us.
Well, where are your locations? I mean, give me one exotic place.
We've got some exotic. We've got 51 locations. We opened our first 2 properties in Portugal this year, or actually at the end of last year. The rest of them today are in Latin America, from Mexico City down to Rio de Janeiro. We've got jungle locations that are literally tents in the jungle. We've got city locations that are in the heart of Medellin or Bogota. And this year we're going to be opening up in the US, New York, Miami. We actually have a deal here in San Diego that we're pursuing. So this year we're expanding into the US and Europe. And again, the idea is to have hundreds of these from China all the way through the US, down to Latin America, everywhere anybody wants to be.
So you see, I came here over to San Diego a few days ago, and I was, chatting with Avi on WhatsApp. And while I was showing him the views of San Diego, where were you?
Cancun.
Cancun. So I cannot even imagine, because I've never been to Cancun, I cannot even imagine how it's going to be there. Now, assuming that I'm there, and I don't know if I can still apply to be a digital nomad, but it's certainly tempting.
Anyone can be.
And anyone can be. So, Avi, I mean, how can anyone learn in Cancun? I mean, there are so many distractions. It's not, I would assume that's not necessarily the same learning environment that you would expect.
Right, but I think the regular learning environment can be a little bit boring, and campuses are very much overrated. If we look at how people want to acquire new skills and get the education, we understood a few things. First of all, people want to take it fast, people want to take it quick. We started with courses and boot camps, and then we divided it to different models of what we called snackable education. The second one was that people want to get it on the go. So our scale model is through co-working spaces, and we came with Selena in a partnership around what we call edu-travel, because when you're doing edu-travel, so you can travel the world and learn as you go. And if you think about it, when you're coming to a new place, your senses are sharper, and you don't have all the distraction that you have back at home. If I'm learning in WeWork, I have like my family, I'm getting back home, I have everything around that. If I want a transformational experience that can really transform me, if I want to acquire new skills to start a new job or something, you can close your eyes for a moment and think about doing, even if it's a boot camp and it's long, 1 month in Cancun, 1 month in Playa del Carmen, 1 month in Tulum, starting your morning with yoga experiences, having a great boot camp blended, okay? You're working with the platform that we have, but you have trainers in-house and mentors, and then at night, I'm not going to speak about that. But we think that this is like a completely new way to acquire education. If we're talking about millennials and the other generation after that, it's a place that people want to go to.
So if I understand you correctly, it's not necessarily just about the content. I mean, the content can be packaged, or has to be packaged in a totally different way for this type of travelers, correct?
Content is everywhere. Experience is something that you need to create, and people want to experience things differently. So we have, if we're talking about the snackable education, if you're going to a vacation, maybe some of it can be taking a 3 or 5 hours workshop about something that really interests you, and you can do the vacation but come back with extra skill that you have. Well, we spoke about the bootcamp, but it's really like something that completely changing the way that people can interact with each other, and we're creating what we call the resilience team together. We're bringing people from all over the world to one location. They need to learn a new culture, they need to learn a new language, they're learning new skills. So it's a lot of learning and how to learn by yourself.
So, Yoav, could this lead in the future or to something that we can maybe bring back to some, let's say, traditional learning environment?
No. Look, we're going to eventually partner with universities, and so universities, go to a university for 4 years and come spend, instead of a semester abroad, spend a semester or a year traveling through an entire region rather than one location. So I think there's a potential for that. From our perspective, the whole thing is changing. I think that people working obviously there will always be people continuing to work in offices, but more and more people are going to be traveling and not being fixed in an office. And if you can get a full education on the road while gaining experiences while you go, why would you possibly sit in a classroom with 300 other people studying chemistry if you could do the same thing, on the beach in Panama and surf in the afternoon? It just doesn't make any sense.
I'm sold. Yeah. But still there are some people that, unfortunately, they are stuck in offices. Okay, Gal, I'd like to ask you a second. I mean, you are actually addressing, or your company is servicing the corporates. Okay, if I understand correctly. And over there, learning is not always such a pleasant experience. How effective is changing that, and what's your take on how people that has to be connected to their phones, etc., sitting to the desk? How can this change the learning environment?
So I think that today education or training in corporate is broken. So most of the organizations, by raise of hand, what is the completion rate of training? 90%, please raise your hand if it's lower. 80%, raise your hand. 70%, 60%, completion rate. 50%, raise your hand, okay, 50%. 40, 30, 20? Okay, so it's between 4 to 20. And by the way, this is if the employees are relatively engaged, right? And when you launch a new product, let's say that you launch this Galaxy Watch, you must have all the employees to learn how to sell this new product. What are the differentiators from the previous and versus competitors? So if you don't do that, your employees will not be ready. And we see it all the time that training currently is broken. Now, the main reason it's too long. Somebody talked about campuses. So it's too long, it's face-to-face, 45 minutes or 30 minutes. And today we have attention span of goldfish. So learning should be like YouTube, 1 or up to 3 minutes. It should be adaptive based on your character, your preferences of how to consume the learning, and also your actual performance. And once you do that, you're able to take your employees, and we work with corporates like Microsoft, HP, IBM, Boeing, GE, Comcast, Novartis, Unilever, Verizon, and more, and they improve actually their selling performance, right? They sell more, they provide better service because they focus on the relevant things and they learn what they need to learn.
Now, you probably have an AI in your solution, correct? You have some sort of AI in your solution, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and today
But
everyone has an AI in their solution.
Much more PI,
But
psychology, intelligence.
I'd like to move away from the AI for a second. What's the feeling of the individual, the same person that you're actually servicing at the end? How is his experience so different than sitting in a class? What value does it bring to him as a human being when you sit over there and you cater for him and you bring in things in the right manner? What is what people are telling you about their expression when this happens?
So it starts with experience, and origin of Game Effective started when I worked for many years in a company as a CEO that focused on customer experience. Okay, customer experience is to provide an experience for any customer that they will feel what you would like them to feel. So you start to have psychology, marketing automation, campaign management, everything around what are their desires, and the most important thing is personalization. So once we look at an employee and we provide elements of personalization, so it's relevant for me, this is the first thing. The second thing, it's more interesting, and we put elements of gamification. And with gamification, I would like to do that because it's more fun, it's more entertaining, it's part of social environment, so I would like to do it. It's much more relevant for me, and then it helps me.
You know, you said, I would like to do it. I mean, that's definitely not always the thing that we expect, especially in corporate, that people will have the desire to learn. We all know that kids has it, but somewhere along the line we probably lose this joy of learning for ourselves rather than learning for the sake of the organizations taking us. And some organizations, as they say, there is no other way, because if you are like 30,000 employees, you need to have some discipline, you need to have some structure, you need to make sure that people are trained and have the right skills to do what they have to do. Well, you're coming from such an organization. Can you tell us a little bit what is wrong in my assumption?
First, I'd like you to note that I've never spent so much time waiting to hear so many things that I disagree with. So just because I came to the US, I'm trying to be polite. Can I say a few things before?
Of
I
course.
think that traveling, you asked a great question about why would you sit in a class with 300 people if you're going to go to somewhere exotic? Yeah, surely, I would definitely do that. But I've got my own job to do and my own life. So if I'm in that position and I'm not a student that can travel, so I need to learn differently. And to what you were leading the witness to, so in Amdocs we've got over 25,000 employees globally. We can't send people to a class. We tried that for many years. We got to the point where we wasted over a third of our budget on people that couldn't, for great reasons, couldn't get to class because the customer called, and we always had something more important, which is the business, bringing revenue at the end of the day. So we didn't stop doing that because eventually all the market analysis, all the smart people that's selling us the same reports that we all read say the same thing. Face-to-face, instructor-led is not going to go away, but at the same time, we can't rely on it. The speed of changes are happening so fast, and we're a company that you can actually see that. You can actually see that. And you said it's not very much about AI versus HI. I truly think it is. It's not the code or the AI that our people can actually develop. It's the human interaction that they can actually create, because we've got people, and we actually see that. We've got people, amazing coders. They can create amazing technology. You wouldn't believe where they're failing. They're failing in the voice conference from India to the customer in the US, not being able to communicate clearly culturally. So one of the biggest challenges that we're trying to deal with today, and I'm not pretending to know how to deal with it. I mean, I've got the title and the job and all that, but we're still working through that. We're trying to solve how you get people to actually learn to communicate, and it's not a presentation skill, but to communicate differently through cultures. And as an Israeli that used to live in the US a little bit, and I've got a host of really funny examples of how people from different cultures translate, it doesn't get across. So it is HI. It is the human people that make all the difference. It's never about the technology. It's never about the code. And AI is not going to solve our issues. So we need to have people learn differently and learn skills that, yes, they can learn it in Cancun, and they can learn it in different ways, but there's no one single way about it. And maybe and I see that in a company that we understand. If we're not going to do that, we're not going to be around. We're a 35 years company. We're not going to be around in the next 5 or 10 years if we're not going to be able to identify how we get our people to upskill themselves, really upskill. Not about Java to Python, not about object-oriented coding to AI. It's about really the human skills that they need to get, new ones.
And one thing that you touch is your experience as someone that is working for a global company with the different cultures. And I think that's something that we need also to remember, that in Israel we are doing so much work with the US. So very often you see those entrepreneurs that have in their experience the opportunity to be acquired by a company and then working for creating the Israeli R&D center for this company. Surprisingly enough, many of those R&D centers very often are called innovation centers for those global companies. Michal, you had this experience. You've been acquired by AOL in the past, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Can you give us a little bit of that experience? I mean, AOL, small company from the US buying you. What's your experience? What you gained from that as an entrepreneur?
Sure. Anyone worked for AOL before? Okay, so it will be hard to explain the culture shock. But it was back in 2006, and innovation was something like not a buzzword like today. Well, innovation was always there, but it was something that wasn't like a real asset to big corporations. So when AOL acquired us, the big challenge was first to keep the startup that now is part of a big corporation as innovative and fast, and to keep all the employees still happy. And also the challenge from AOL was to instill the innovation within the corporation. Just to explain the differences, there are 3 terms that are used in Israel, I think, that describe the culture. The first one is Yeh Beseder. Yeh Beseder, what it means is, don't worry, everything is fine. What it really means is we have no infrastructure. The other term is Balagan, which means kind of a mess. And what it means is lack of process and procedures. And the last one is chutzpah. I'm sure you all know what the chutzpah, the Israeli chutzpah is. And what it means is lack of boundaries. And that's what makes the Israeli people so innovative and so bold, because it also takes a lot of guts to build startups and to work in startups. It's people who are not afraid to fail, and the culture of innovation. With that said, we have all this chaotic environment, but also the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, is the absolute opposite. It's very well organized. Titles is everything. Boundaries are very, very clear. And we've all been there, because when you're 18, drafting is mandatory. So I think all these opposites makes us who we are. Also in school, there are no boundaries. Kids are calling their teachers and the principal by their first names. Everyone questions us. It's a very open culture. And to really foster innovation, it's not something that you can just learn, because when big companies acquire small companies like startups in Israel, they think they can teach innovation or learn innovation. It's something in the culture that you start. It's really children have to have this freedom, have to have this lack of boundaries, so to speak, to really be innovative. We have to break the silos to foster innovation. And it's true in the school, it's true in the kindergarten, and it's true in companies. So it does make it very hard to manage Israelis. That they're not manageable, but if you know how to kind of manage the chaos that is unmanageable, you can get amazing things out of this. So it was Religence that was acquired by AOL, and we had delegations of top executives coming to Israel to learn from us and to work together. It's a great experience for both, and we learned a lot from AOL, from their cooperation and processes and communication. It's a different culture. And now my second startup is Symbolab. We do math. So we've reached more than 90 million users with a team of less than 10 employees. So that shows you what innovation, how far you can get with innovation and with a human intellect in Israel.
Yeah, so you have how many users? 80?
90 million.
90 million. Okay.
Yaki, you're not up to date.
I'm not up to date. You know, every week when we discuss it, goes by another 10 million. That's amazing. So, what's the size of your sales team over here in the US? I know, it's zero.
Zero.
Okay, so, you know, I think that this is another example that for the Israelis, our DNA is to reach to the world, but not necessarily maybe follow let's say the same routes that others are following. Because some people would argue that in order to reach such a big magnitude, you need to have so many salespeople. I mean, if you go to the VCs and you show them your go-to-market strategies, and this is a goal that you want to reach, then you definitely need to raise $100 million just to do that. When you don't have the 100 million, or you don't want to sacrifice your equity in the company, because you know every entrepreneur also wants to keep the equity to himself, then you are looking for another imaginative ways to do that. But I'd like to touch another thing that you mentioned, and you mentioned, you know, about the Israeli culture. One thing that we have in Israel, and we always pride ourselves of, is that we have the youth movements in Israel, where you have a free choice learning. It's very different from the way that you see youth movements in the US or in Europe. And over there, free choice learning is really just it. I mean, you cannot force a kid to go there. Free choice learning is that if you want, you do it. If you don't want, you don't do it. And some people argue that it's only for kids. Well, you do it also for adults. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, as I said before, I mean, in that speed of changes, we got to the conclusion that we have to get our employees really liked and be passionate about learning. And for that, you know, everything works. So it could be all kinds of games that in the past were maybe childish. It could be all kinds of methods. We try to take the makers movement methodology into the organization. And it's a big organization that works siloed. Eventually, someone mentioned breaking the silo, which is a big challenge. So we try to take people actually to break the silos and break the boundaries by actually making them think like makers. Take whatever you need, put it together, solve it. It's basically bringing kind of innovation, and we're still working at it, as you noticed. But we're trying to make it a structural innovation. You know, we're driving it, my organization, Learning and Talent Development, but it might as well be driven by the innovation team. I'm not sure about the boundaries in that space, and that's the beauty about it, because we're trying to create something new with that type of methodology that is, in most cases, kids play.
You know, I never worked for Amdocs. You know, I was never the corporate guy that was willing to go to a company.
I said that in the past as well.
Yeah, you said that in the past as well. Okay. Now, I know that most of those big organizations, they have, you know, what they call career development. When you say, okay, you sit with you, someone from HR, and you sit with you and say, okay, where you would like to advance your career and where to go over there, which is many times not that effective because maybe you don't even want to be very candid with this HR manager to do that. You also have a different approach to do that, am I correct?
Yes, we're trying to create a map for people really understand where the organization is going to. In the past, we tried to create all kinds of paths for people. If you're in that role, then you probably can move into different roles. And we're trying to kind of wipe the board. And instead of telling people where they should go, we're telling them where the organization is going, what new technologies, what new areas are going, and tell them this is where it's heading. It's like a radar basically looking into the future, and tell them, go do that. Take care of yourself. Up to the point that we're sometimes trying to even be bold and say, your manager will not do that. If you won't take care of your career, then your manager cannot force you to do that. Then go ahead and do that. We know that in that process, we're gonna probably lose some people because we're enabling them, empowering them to actually take care of their career and might move out of the organization. But we believe that the people that will remain with us and the people that we will hire would have a new mindset that will actually propel themselves to a new career development.
So actually, if I understand correctly, the system that you have deployed at Amdocs is maybe I would say it's like an internal LinkedIn in a sense?
What comes out of that is that each one of the employees eventually would need to report about themselves. What are their skills? And we build it basing on a model that it's actually a free country. You know, if everybody actually sees my skills, then maybe they will approach me from a different organization. You know, for the heads of the business unit, this is shocking and they don't want to have that. But we're working with them to engage them to actually understand that by them having that, they will have a better map of the skills of their workforce, and they will be able to actually source people from other organizations as well.
Gal, I would assume that also when you are actually working and providing personal solutions to each of the individuals in the organization, you probably also learn a lot about those people. Is this data being used by the organization? Who is actually learning from that? Is it just the person himself? Is it the organization? Is it both?
So we try to provide the organization with additional personalization skills. For example, we released recently a micro-segmentation solution together with challenges. So let's say that there are different challenges, personal, like individual challenges or group challenges, more competitive or less competitive. And now the AI actually understand if the person is more motivated from competitive or not, from individual or group. And then it improves dramatically the engagement and actually the performance. Another thing that we learn is that since we are, I think, the first company that holds information about engagement, learning, and performance, we can predict who would be the next person to leave the company. The best people that leave the company, actually they perform well, right? But usually you start seeing their learning and engagement going down, right? And then you can intervene and you can, work with them and try to think how to improve their experience and to keep them in the company.
So it's, in a sense, providing them some prediction that today you cannot necessarily have from a normal HR manager in the organization.
Right, and I'm an expert in analytics. In my past, the weakness of analytics that it's not actionable, because there's no something at the end to say, hey, do something with that, right? So you must put actionable elements. For example, like in marketing value proposition, I will offer you a new product if I know more about you. The same thing with employees and students, of course.
So I hope that we touched a little bit about Israel and innovation, creativity. We would like to take the opportunity to invite you also to engage with us, not only here at the ASU GSV. We are having our own mini ASU GSV happening in June, early June in Israel. So if you want to engage more with the community, more to also maybe want to speak up and also share your views and interact with the community, I extend this invitation to you to check us out, come to Tel Aviv in June. We are effectively, we are running out of time. So what I would like to invite you is that we are going to stay over here. And if you have nothing else to do, we'd be happy to continue the conversation with you, have the engagement, do it face-to-face, because maybe the bottom line is that, yes, AI is, everyone speaks about it, but we still believe that there's a lot to the human touch. Thank you very much.